I've been disliked by my son and daughter-in-law for 17 years. My husband has already passed away, and I've endured it all without anyone to confide in. Initially, I tried to advise my son and daughter-in-law about finding jobs, but each time I did, I faced violence, so eventually, I stopped trying. For me, my grandson Tim was the only source of joy, and raising him was my sole purpose in life. Now, he is graduating from high school and is leaving home soon. So, I made the decision to leave my son and daughter-in-law's house quietly and move to a new place with strong reluctance. I resolved to spend the rest of my life alone. Then, I got a call from Tim. Happy graduation.
Congratulations on your graduation too, Grandma.
Those words meant more to me than anything else. They made me feel like all my struggles had finally been worth it. But that wasn't all. Not only did I have a plan, but Tim did too, and thanks to that plan, I would be saved. I am Melissa. I lost my husband 12 years ago, and now, at the age of 59, I still work in a small to medium-sized company. Honestly, continuing to work with an aging body is quite challenging, but I have reasons that I have to keep going. I live with my son Mick, his wife Bella, and their son Tim. Mick is already a grown man, but perhaps my parenting wasn't effective, as his behavior hasn't been great. He started going off track when he was in junior high, and although he managed to get into high school, he kept getting into trouble with teachers and classmates. When he was a senior, he met Bella, who is 2 years younger than him, at a video arcade he used to hang around, and started dating. Then, he got her pregnant. By the time I realized it, it was already too late, and there was nothing I could do. The day Mick and Bella confessed it to me, I felt dizzy with shock. While I had heard of high schoolers getting pregnant in dramas and anecdotes, I never imagined my own son would do such a thing. Even my husband, who was alive at the time, was furious at our son's selfish actions, and it escalated into a physical fight. He was a strict man, so he found our son's misbehavior even more intolerable. Moreover, he must have felt guilty about our son's actions, blaming himself for his upbringing. From that time on, he threw himself excessively into work and began drinking heavily, ultimately shortening his lifespan. I went to apologize to Bella's parents, but it seemed they were also struggling with her behavior and decided to cut ties, not wanting to be involved any further. As a result, Bella, with nowhere else to go, naturally ended up living in my house. Even after Tim was born, they showed no intention of moving out. They would often ask me for money and then disappear, spending their nights out until the early hours. Initially, I hoped they would develop a sense of responsibility as adults. Regardless of the circumstances, I believed that once we became a family, we should support each other, and above all, I couldn't let go of the wish for them to become responsible adults. No matter how much I tried to reason with them, they not only ignored me but also resorted to verbal abuse and, at times, even violence. As these incidents continued to occur, I found myself more afraid of their violence than trying to reason with them. Honestly, I felt like a failure as a mother. However, with no one else to turn to for advice, my mind was consumed with just getting through each day without any trouble. Consequently, they never made any effort to work, and even when they did, they never lasted long in any job. With their irresponsible behavior, it was natural that they couldn't possibly take care of Tim, leading to a state of neglect. Therefore, I ended up being the one raising Tim as a parent. Children have a way of being endearing, and even in the midst of busyness, just thinking of Tim's face gave me the strength to carry on. Perhaps there was also a sense of atonement in my actions. Because I couldn't raise Mick properly, I wished for Tim to live happily. It seemed that Tim understood my feelings, as he grew into an amazingly well-behaved and obedient child. And whenever we had a long holiday, I would take Tim on trips to Alaska. Why Alaska? Well, I had loved Mount McKinley since I was a child. No matter how much the times may change, seeing the majestic presence of Mount McKinley always fills me with a sense of empowerment. After losing my husband, I had been anxious about whether I could live a long life. I worried about who would take care of Tim if I died before he grew up. I was determined to live at least until he became an adult. So, I hoped to gain some of the mountain's power to live a healthier and longer life. As I took Tim with me on several trips, it seemed like he also developed a fondness for Mount McKinley. Occasionally, he would even beg me to take him to the spot where you can see Mount McKinley. Thanks to the power of Mount McKinley, I managed to take care of Tim without suffering any major illnesses. Since my son and daughter-in-law still didn't involve themselves in childcare, I attended events like kindergarten drop-offs and pickups, sports days, and parent-teacher meetings. Because they were so absent, the teachers at Tim's school thought I was his parent. Balancing work and raising a grandson was certainly challenging, but Tim never went off track like Mick did, and he grew quite attached to me. However, Mick's attitude towards me worsened with each passing year.
Hey, I'm going out to have fun, so give me some money.
No, that's for living expenses. When I refused and said that, Mick would reply,
Shut up, old hag. Don't talk back to me.
Then he would resort to physical violence, hitting and kicking me.
Hey, hurry up and make dinner. Why are you resting?
Make dinner first, then you can rest.
Even if I had just returned from work, they would refuse to do any chores and would demand that I comply. Furthermore, when I suggested to Bella, "Hey, if you need help with cooking, I can teach you. Why don't you try making it yourself?" she would grimace and reply,
No way. Why should I have to do that? You do it.
and that would be the end of it. In essence, to the two of them, I wasn't a parent or anything else. I was simply a convenient servant who earned money and took care of household chores for them. When I realized that they saw me in this way, I felt incredibly sad. It was far from the family life I had envisioned, and Mick's attitude, in particular, was very difficult to bear. One day, while I was playing with Tim, Mick suddenly said, loud enough for me to hear,
Ah, Tim is so lucky. He's getting properly taken care of.
I was taken aback by his words. What are you talking about? I've been taking good care of you. But then Mick slammed the table and started shouting.
Then why do I have to live such a miserable life?
I couldn't understand what he meant and remained silent, but his anger didn't subside.
It's all your fault. If you had raised me properly, I wouldn't have gotten Bella pregnant.
Bella, who was listening nearby, wore an expression of disbelief.
Ha, that makes no sense. You were the one who initiated it, right? What are you talking about now?
Mick seemed displeased with Bella's words, so he suddenly slapped her face. Bella clutched her face and crouched down on the floor, sobbing loudly. Hey, Mick. There's no need to hit her.
Shut up, shut up, shut up. It's all your fault. Because of you, nothing in my life goes right.
Even when I tried to admonish him, he just kept shouting and wouldn't listen at all. It was quite common for Mick to throw tantrums like this, and each time, I was blamed for everything. But even when Mick shouted at me, I didn't get angry. Instead, I felt sad. Perhaps I had indeed made Mick feel lonely by being too preoccupied with work. Looking back, I realized that I had such awareness. However, no matter how much he blames others, he can't change his own life. When he was younger, he had excess energy and could vent his frustrations outside. But as he aged and lost both his playmates and physical strength, all his pent-up frustrations were directed towards me. It was a cold winter day, and I ended up working late due to overtime. I opened the front door while warming my freezing hands with my breath. As I entered the living room, I found Mick sitting on the sofa, glaring at me. "I'm home. Sorry I'm a bit late." But without saying a word, he approached me and forcefully snatched my bag, slamming it onto the floor. "What do you think you're doing?"
Hurry up and make dinner.
"Huh?"
I'm hungry, so make dinner.
I was tired from work, and his attitude infuriated me. "Don't act like a child demanding food. You can make it yourself." But I realized that such words wouldn't make him reflect on his behavior. His expression changed with my words. Without a word, he grabbed my arm and began dragging me towards the front door. "Stop. It hurts." Without a word, he opened the front door and threw me outside. "Hey!" I yelled, but he closed the door and locked it. Since the house keys were in my bag, I couldn't get back inside. "Please, open the door," I begged, knocking on the front door. Then the door swung open. Just as I felt a moment of relief, he hurled a bucket of water at me. "It's freezing." "What are you doing?" The cold shock made me feel as if my heart might stop for a moment.
How's that? It's cold, isn't it? Serves you right.
Then, from inside the house, Tim rushed over in a panic.
Hey, Dad, what are you doing?
Shut up. Stay out of this.
Despite Mick's angry shouts, Tim didn't back down. As I watched this scene unfold, it reminded me of similar incidents from the past. At that time, Tim had been scolded and drenched with water by Mick before being locked out of the house. When I returned from work, I found Tim shivering outside the front door and rushed to help him. I didn't want him to experience such pain again. "It's okay, Tim. It's nothing to do with you." Tim clenched his fists with frustration. Meanwhile, Mick, looking down on me, smirked maliciously.
That's right. It's all your fault. Kneel down here. If you don't, I won't open the door until morning.
Feeling both cold and overwhelmed with humiliation, my body trembled. But stubbornness wouldn't change anything in this situation. Mick would likely leave me outside for real. For the sake of raising Tim, I had no choice but to endure and kneel down. "I'm sorry. I apologize," I managed to say, almost choking on the words, as I knelt on the cold concrete. Small stones dug into my knees, and the cold seeped through my wet clothes, stealing away what little warmth remained in my body. Mick smirked with satisfaction, placing his foot on the back of my head.
That's right, that's how it should be. Come on, make dinner.
He said, laughing, before going back into the living room. Soon after, Tim rushed over.
Grandma, hang in there. We need to warm you up quickly,
he said, supporting my body. It was not uncommon for such incidents to occur. Even if I wanted to resist, it was clear that my aging body would be overpowered. Yet, the reason I kept the two of them in my house was due to the guilt of not raising him properly. However, every time violence was directed at me, I couldn't help but feel pathetic, wondering how long this kind of life would continue. Every time I heard news about elderly parents being harmed by their own children, I felt a sense of fear, as if I was being shown my own future. That's why I decided that when Tim left home, it would mark the end of this difficult life. And that moment arrived sooner than I had expected. Tim, who was in his third year of high school, approached me one day with a discussion.
Grandma, when I graduate from high school, I'm going to start working instead of going to college.
I was surprised by my grandson's sudden declaration. Is that so? But is that really okay? If you want to go to college, I'll find a way. When I said that, Tim shook his head sadly.
I'm glad you say that. But, Grandma, you're already retired, right? And my parents are like that. But don't worry. I'm not sacrificing myself for it.
Tim's words made me feel unbearably sad, as if my heart were being torn apart. If only I had been stronger. If only Mick had worked like everyone else. Tim shouldn't have had to go through this. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I apologized to Tim, tears streaming down my face in shame. Fortunately, Tim's job hunt went smoothly, and he landed a position at a company in Los Angeles. He also secured accommodation in the company's dormitory. So, as soon as the graduation ceremony was over, Tim would be leaving this house behind. It seemed that Mick and his wife weren't particularly concerned about this development. I had been secretly planning and executing something since I heard about Tim. On the eve of Tim's graduation ceremony, as I was getting ready, Mick approached me.
Hey, it's Tim's graduation tomorrow, and we're going.
Huh? Why?
Why? Well, he's our son, isn't he? Is there a problem with that?
Certainly, there was no problem. However, Mick, who had never properly taken care of parenting or attended school events, suddenly wanting to join felt suspicious to me. However, it would be strange to refuse their attendance for that reason. All right then, let's all go together. Upon my proposal, Bella let out a small laugh and coldly remarked,
What are you talking about? You don't need to come.
Why not? Why shouldn't I go? I persisted, not understanding the meaning behind their words.
Well, you know, graduation ceremonies can be pretty fancy. So, I want to dress up nicely.
That's fine, but why can't I come?
Because, you know, you'd be in the way.
Why would I be in the way?
Listen, they take photos, right? And if you're in the picture, it ruins the whole thing. Imagine a nice celebratory photo with an old woman like you in it. It just doesn't work.
Bella's unreasonable excuse angered me. If they wanted to celebrate Tim's graduation without me, fine, I'd gracefully step back. But she's just pushing me aside to fulfill her own vanity. I've never once received a word of gratitude from my son and daughter-in-law. It's not like I need those words, but I at least wanted to celebrate Tim's milestone. Please. I want to attend the graduation ceremony.
Yeah, I get it. I didn't graduate high school, you know. And that's all your fault.
Exactly. It's really audacious of you. Just think about what you've done.
I gave up trying to persuade them at that point. Any further argument would only lead to heartless violence. So, I had no choice but to suppress my feelings and back down.
Grandma.
Tim said, his face contorted with sadness. It's okay. Mick is right. Old people should stay home. And then, the graduation day arrived. After the graduation ceremony, Tim immediately is going to board a plane bound for Los Angeles to join the company and move into the dormitory. And since I'm also moving forward with my own plans, today might be the last time I'll ever see him.
Grandma, I'm off.
Do your best. Then, Tim left home with his parents. After seeing off the three of them, I immediately made a phone call. Thank you for your assistance. Actually, there's been a change of plans. No, it's just that my son and his wife are away, so I'd like to move my belongings while they're gone. I see, thank you very much. As soon as I hung up the phone, I began preparing for the move. Several tens of minutes later, I handed over the minimum necessary items to the movers who arrived at my house, and then I left as well. Yes, just like Tim, I had begun preparing to graduate from this lifestyle. I've already informed the company, and the new residence is also ready. I really wanted to tell Tim as well, but I couldn't bring myself to do it because I didn't know where Mick might hear it from. If I were to leave home, my son and his wife would never let me do it. That's because they would lose both their source of income and their housekeeper at the same time. I had originally planned to move out when Tim finished his graduation ceremony and my son and his wife were away, but since they left unexpectedly, I saw this as an opportunity. While I did have regrets about Tim, I believed he would be able to manage just fine, and I thought I could sort things out by sending him a letter. So, I decided to focus on resolving my own situation first. And my plan worked out well. Without being caught by them, I was able to move to my new house safely. It's located very close to that place in Alaska where Mount McKinley can be seen clearly. Since I'm going to live alone anyway, I've always wanted to live while looking at Mount McKinley until the time I depart from this world. But my plan wasn't just that. As I was taking a breather in my new home, I received a phone call from Mick. What? Has the graduation ceremony already finished?
Cut the crap.
Mick shouted angrily over the phone.
When I got home earlier, a real estate agent showed up and told us to get out of the house. What's going on?
Exactly as it sounds. I put that house up for sale. Fortunately, I found a buyer right away, so you two should move out soon.
Why would you sell your own house? Have you lost your mind?
It's to graduate. I've already moved out, so you two figure out what to do next on your own. Yes, I had not only moved out but also put my own house up for sale. Even if I left the house, I was concerned that my son and his wife would continue their indulgent lifestyle as long as they lived there. Despite receiving such terrible treatment, somewhere deep down, I hadn't given up hope that Mick would become independent. However, I realized that it was impossible as things were, so I decided to push them into a crisis situation. That way, Mick would inevitably have to work for his own livelihood, and Bella would naturally start supporting him. Whether my plan will work out remains uncertain at this stage. However, it should still be better than continuing to live in the same place indefinitely. Yet, it seems that Mick is unaware of my intentions. He continues to express resentment over the phone. Mick, are you suddenly abandoning your son like this? Are you even still a parent? I've graduated from being a parent.
Stop talking nonsense. What about the money, huh? You sold the house, didn't you? Where did that money go?
All of that money went to me. It's for my retirement fund. Mick finally seemed to understand his own situation, and he started to cry pitifully.
Mom, I was wrong. I deeply regret what I've done. So please don't abandon me. It's impossible for me to find a job now.
My heart wavered for a moment upon hearing my son's feeble words from the other end of the phone. But I steeled myself and remained resolute. I don't blame you for what you did. I also feel like I've made you feel lonely. That's why I want you to become independent. I'm old now.
Then at least tell me where you've moved to. It's too much not being able to see you like this. I won't ask for money, I promise.
No, I can't trust your words. Live happily with Bella. That's all I can say to you.
Mom. Mom.
This is the last time we'll speak. Make Bella happy. Goodbye. With that, I hung up the phone. I set Mick's phone number to block calls, turned off my phone, placed it on the desk, and lay down on the bed. It's already getting dim outside. The color of the sunset seeping through the curtains lightly tints the white ceiling with a peach hue. As I gaze up at that ceiling alone, I let out a deep sigh. A mix of relief that everything went well, guilt for abandoning my son and his wife, and loneliness for being alone swirl within me. Memories of the events leading up to this moment naturally flood my mind, creating an illusion as if they're being projected onto the white ceiling like a screen. The day I first met my husband, the day Mick was born, the day Bella came into our lives, the day my husband passed away, and the memories with Tim. I got up from the bed and made my way to the room with a small altar. There, my husband's portrait was placed. Sitting before it, I murmured, "From now on, it'll be just the two of us." Time passed, and the summer holidays arrived. I continued to work as a regular employee, and at the company's recommendation, I extended my employment, so it seemed I would be working for the foreseeable future. Though I had initially wanted to quit my job and take it easy, considering my retirement, I wanted to earn as much money as possible and maintain connections with others. Nonetheless, during times when I didn't have work, I lived quietly alone. Today, I headed to the roadside station near my house to buy groceries in preparation for the holiday. It used to be a place where Tim and I often looked at Mount McKinley. Now, because of its convenient location, it has been turned into a roadside station and a small park. After finishing my shopping and looking at Mount McKinley, I received a sudden call from an unknown number. I hesitated for a moment but decided to answer it. Hello?
Hello, Grandma. It's me, Tim.
Huh, Tim? What's going on? I exclaimed with surprise, my voice much louder than expected. Actually, Tim didn't have a cell phone when he graduated from high school, so he shouldn't have known my phone number.
I bought one right after I got a job. I wanted to call you for sure, so I had your number written down.
Yeah, I'm sorry for leaving without saying anything.
No worries. I knew. I happened to overhear you talking to the real estate agent. I knew it was bad, but I found some documents you were hiding and took notes.
Is that so? But I'm glad. I've been worried about you. I felt relieved to hear Tim's voice after so long. So, does this mean you're already on vacation from work?
Yeah. That's why I came to visit,
What? As I was about to ask Tim what he meant, I suddenly felt a tap on my shoulder and turned around in surprise. There stood Tim, with a big smile on his face.
Grandma, long time no see.
I was surprised. How did you know I was here? Tim responded to my question with a proud expression.
I went to the address I wrote down, but you weren't there. But I had a feeling you'd be here. You used to bring me here often, remember? The surroundings have changed a lot though.
Well, that's true. But it would have been better if you had told me beforehand. It would have been a disaster if you came all the way from Los Angeles and couldn't find me.
No, I'm not working in Los Angeles. I just said that to deceive my parents. I'm actually working in Alaska.
Is that so? So you've been actually living nearby. Tim still looked happy.
That's right. Grandma, you've been through a lot because of me. So from now on, I want to repay you even just a little.
Oh, there's no need to worry about that. Raising you was my happiness. My heart was filled with Tim's kindness. Though life had been difficult up until now, I felt that all the efforts and sacrifices I made for Tim were finally paying off.
From now on, whenever I have time off, I want to spend it with you, Grandma. Let's see Mount McKinley together again.
Yes, let's do that. As my grandson and I talked, Mount McKinley seemed to quietly watch over us. After that, whenever Tim had time off, he would stay at my place, and we would have a great time together. Being able to spend such moments was truly enjoyable, especially since I couldn't do so before because of the harassment from my son and his wife. I had thought I would spend my retirement alone in loneliness, but suddenly, it felt like a new world had opened up before me. Before, I used to just stay indoors, waiting for time to pass, but nowadays I actively engage with my neighbors. Thanks to that effort, I've made new friends, and each day has become even more enjoyable. I was able to find out what happened to my son and his wife through old acquaintances. They may be struggling financially, but it seems they are managing to get by on their own, so for now, I can breathe a sigh of relief. Today, I'm planning to go to the place where we can see Mount McKinley with Tim again. It's been a series of hardships, but now I'm finally grateful to have peaceful days and live happily.